and it's sharp. You're on. Start here.
Yep.
Start there.
That one, this one, then
Forget about
that's my other stuff.
You just do those 2 pages. This one and this one.
Good.
So, go ahead.
All right, welcome Mr. Azer, and thank you for your service. My name is Trish Coons. I'm with the American Red Cross, filming this, doing the interview. Your name, sir, fully?
Peter Martin Azer.
And Mr. Azer, what is the address here, or where do you live? We are at the Community Living Center here at West Palm Beach Medical Center, the VA Medical Center. And just a few things to ask you. I'm going to be doing this for the Library of Congress. What is your birth date?
August 23rd, 1940.
Okay.
He's a good deal.
Yeah.
Coast Guard. Are you interviewing? I'm sorry. No.
Okay. And the names of the people, well, it's just me, Trish, and including, let's see.
Trish, okay?
So, you're a veteran, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you were a veteran of what foreign war?
Desert Storm.
Desert Storm. Wonderful. And let's see. The branch of service that you served in?
U.S. Coast Guard and the Army National Guard.
So the U.S. Coast Guard and the Army National Guard.
Right.
And your rank in the U.S. Coast Guard was?
Second class petty officer.
Second class petty officer. And then you went into the Army National Guard, which you got up to what rank?
Sergeant.
Sergeant. And where are the places that you served at?
I served in the icebreaker East Wind that went down to the Antarctica.
It went where?
Down to Antarctica.
Antarctica. Whew. All right. And in the Army National Guard, where did you serve?
I served in New England area. Then we got activated for Desert Storm War. I served in Southwest Asia.
And you were over in, and that was in Boston, correct?
Coast Guard was in Boston.
In Boston. And the Army National Guard was where?
Hyannis.
Hyannis. All right, let me just get a little closer.
Boston.
Oh, Boston. You were living in Boston with your folks? Or you were already on your own?
I was married.
Already married. Fabulous. You had a whole family too?
Yeah, three boys.
Wow. So why did you join?
I joined the Coast Guard for the adventure, and I joined the National Guard because we were victims of the storm of '78 to pay back.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And why did you pick those particular branches? I mean, for the Coast Guard, why pick the Coast Guard?
Because the Coast Guard is a small branch.
And then the National Guard, and you said that was because you had storms up there in Boston.
Right.
Yeah, what kind of storms was it that triggered you to want to do this?
I lived on a peninsula, so we had a bad storm of '78. The storm of '78.
Storm of 78. How did it affect you that way?
The National Guard evacuated us from our home.
Wow. Wow. And do you recall the first days in service? Say, for instance, with the Coast Guard first. Do you remember joining and going for your first days of training?
Right. I went to Cape May, New Jersey, Coast Guard Training Center. I was in Bravo 40 Company.
Wow. How was that experience with the National Guard, and how you chose the National Guard because of the storms and stuff up there? You were living on a peninsula, right? Get myself back on track here. Now, My next question was, do you recall your first days in service? So, in the National Guard, do you remember when you went to boot camp? Or did you do boot camp, and how did that training go?
With the Coast Guard.
With the Coast Guard. Okay, tell me how that went.
It was a 3-month course, and we did rowing boats, learning all kinds of ways of keeping your uniform, general housekeeping, and as far as the M1 weapon.
And what about
KP.
KV, yeah, and the history of the Coast Guard? You had to go through all the classes and
Right.
stuff like that? And let's see, what did it feel like to you going through boot camp? I mean,
It was nothing. I was a kid, 18 years old.
but you already had a family at that time, right?
No.
In the Coast Guard, you weren't. All right, so we have, let's see. Can you tell me about some of the stuff that you learned in boot camp, your training experience? You were learning about KP. You learned about, how to do your uniforms. Was there something there that maybe you didn't learn when you were a kid at home? Something that training actually trained you in boot camp?
I don't recall.
No? All right. Do you remember all your instructors or any of your instructors?
I remember Chief
Two.
Gibson and Sergeant Constable Caraway.
And what makes you remember
We did a
these
lot
guys?
of marching.
They were what?
We did a lot of marching.
Marching. All right. And how did you get through it? Was it tough?
It was an experience.
An experience. All right. How much? What kind of an experience was it? I mean, what were you thinking?
Good experience.
Yeah. Awesome. And so you said you were during the Gulf War, I think you said.
National
Desert
Guard.
Storm? In National Guard. You were in during Desert Storm.
Right.
Did you go anywhere?
Remember with the whole Southwest Asia. We were a transportation company. We had to bring the ammunition, personnel on station. We went from Port Aziz to Saudi Arabia,
Wow.
to Kuwait, to Iraq.
And what all did you transport?
Water, personnel, mail.
Anything that needed to move, I guess, huh?
Missiles that went on the helicopters.
And do you remember arriving at all these different ports?
Yeah. We arrived at Port Aziz. And we would bring the people that came into the country out in the desert. For the first month we were there. And then the second month we did the mail. And then when we were getting ready for the war, we did the ammunition for the 101st Airborne. We later signed to the 2nd Airborne. That's when we brought the people up to the western part of the flank.
Wow. And what exactly was your job or assignment?
driver.
You were driving a truck. What did that entail? What kind of training does something like that take?
We went to school for truck driving and on-the-job training on a civilian job
And where was that?
in Boston.
In Boston. Wow. That's very convenient for you, I guess, huh? Being that your family was there, everything was centralized. Now, did you ever end up seeing any combat while you were out there?
Yeah, we were caught in Kavchi. We also drove the highway of death. Went through there.
Any near misses or anything like that?
Yeah, Kavchi was hell.
You care to elaborate on it?
We were coming back from a mission out of Iran. And we were caught between firefight where the Marines were. We had to wait up till they cleared the road.
Wow. Were there any casualties in your unit?
No, not in my unit.
Not in your unit.
But the Pennsylvania unit, they got hit by Sam Niska. They got hit by shrapnel.
Can you tell me about any of your most memorable experiences?
The National Guard,
Sure.
when the Pope came to Boston, we were the escort for him.
I didn't know you were a professional photographer.
All right, Mr. Azer, continuing on. All right, so you were not a prisoner of any of the wars or a war at that time. And do you happen to have any, we were asking you about any memorable experiences besides the one event that you told us about. Are there any others?
We did the guard duty on the Boston Marathon.
Oh, that's very cool. Boston Marathon. So how many times did you do that? Just the 1 year?
3 years.
3 years. Awesome. And were you awarded any medals or citations while you were in the military?
Yeah, Southwest Asia Medal, Antarctica ribbon, Good Conduct Medal, Kuwait Medal. That's all I can think of now.
Right, because you said you have like a total of 18 medals. That's amazing. That's wonderful. And how did you get them? Were they all during the Coast Guard, or were there some from National Guard as well?
Just split up.
Split amongst. Sure. Now, one of the, you were saying there was a memorable experience. That was in your Coast Guard. Was there something memorable that you wanted to tell us about in the National Guard?
Can't think of any now.
No, not at the time. That's perfectly fine, and maybe it'll jog your memory later. And so, how did you get some of those citations, or some of your awards, your medals?
I participated in the drills, and when they activated us, that's when I got them.
Okay. And did you have to do any battle planning? I know you were enlisted, so were you ever an officer?
No.
No. But did you have any battle planning experience?
I was a squad leader.
A squad leader. That's pretty cool. And that was with the National Guard.
Right.
All right.
And a cook in the Coast Guard.
And a cook in the Coast Guard. Awesome. So where did you go to training for the Coast Guard?
Cape May, New Jersey.
And that was
Groton, Connecticut.
And that was for your training as well for cooking?
Groton, Connecticut was for cooking.
Oh, gosh. And so you say, were you injured during active duty?
Yes.
Yes. And do you care to elaborate on that?
I was in a contaminated area in Iraq. And it came down with what they call Parkinson's disease, and a neurological disorder.
Do they know what it was?
Yes, they did.
And did they ever tell you, and were you immediately treated for this, or did it take a while?
Immediately compensated.
And so this is now your disability with the military. So, and that was with the Coast Guard, correct?
No.
No, that was National Guard. So in the Coast Guard, were you ever injured?
No.
All right. So do you have any stories about your life in the service?
I got married when I was in the service.
Fantastic. And where did you meet your wife?
I met her in high school.
High school. So it's your sweetheart.
Right.
Yeah. And you said you had 3 children
Right.
with her. And so she followed you through the military.
Right.
How did you stay in touch with your family at that time when you were away? So say you were in the Coast Guard. How did you keep in touch with your family?
The Coast Guard stopped at a port and kept in touch by telephone. And also we had a hand radio on the ship.
Nice. So you got to call home on the ham
National
radios?
Guard, in Saudi Arabia, they had telephones that we called on.
All right. So you said you're a cook
There's a cook in the Coast Guard.
in the Coast Guard, which leads me into the next question. What was the food like?
Who was fabulous.
Because you made it, right?
Right.
Like what kind of things did you make, and were there special occasions to make special items for your...
We put out 15 pounds of SOS in the morning, every morning. And chicken a la king. And made a recipe for cinnamon rolls. They were the best.
And up until the times that you were at home, you know, and you'd come home and be home with your family and that sort of thing, did you ever cook for them?
Yes.
Did you make those infamous rolls, cinnamon rolls? And so when you were in the military, did you have plenty of your supplies, whether in the Coast Guard or in the National Guard?
Yes, we did.
All your supplies were plentiful? People would ask for stuff, you transported enough equipment that they requested?
Yes.
And did you feel any pressure or stress at those times?
Yes. Driving in the National Guard. It's a 6-lane highway. Made no difference if it was 95 on a 6-lane highway in Saudi Arabia. Still got the freight through.
Wow. That's a lot of pressure there.
Can you turn it off for a minute?
Yes, sir. All right, we're back on. Was there a special, something special that you did for good luck? You know, sometimes people have, I don't know, some sort of a little superstitious rabbit's foot or something like this. Did you ever have anything that you kept around? Picture of your family,
I had a picture of my mother and father.
your mom and dad. And so how did the people in the Coast Guard entertain themselves? You're sitting on a boat.
We had Bonanza movies. Elliot Ness movies. We were down the Antarctic, so it was kind of isolated.
Right?
So I used to hang around the ham shack.
And what is that?
Ham radio.
The ham radios. So you listened to a lot of chatter going on.
Right.
Nice. So were there ever any entertainers that came aboard this ship?
No.
And so when you did take leave, what would you do? You go back home or?
I go back home.
Yeah. And that was to Boston.
Right.
And so you had mentioned a few places where you'd traveled to while you were in the service.
Went to the Panama Canal, New Zealand, Sulu, Fiji, American Samoa Island, Antarctica.
Well, it sounds more like a luxury trip than it does the military, doesn't it? Nice. And so when you went through the Panama Canal, you took the ship through there?
Right.
Went through all the channels?
Right.
The locks? How nice. Do you recall any particular humorous or unusual events? Stuff that really sticks out in your mind that just...
Across the equator. We went from pollywogs to honorable. Pollywogs to honorable shellbacks.
Shellbacks, yeah, honorable shellbacks. And did you get a certificate for your
Right.
crossing? Yeah, that's neat. And were there any big, the celebration, like, what? All I remember is stories about some fellows getting covered in mustard or something.
Right.
And what was y'all's?
Being the cook, I saved up the garbage for a week.
Ew.
And they put grease on King Neptune's stomach. And the guys have to kiss the stomach and crawl through the garbage.
Ew. Okay. And we're gonna. All right. So, were there any? Well, you were talking about that. Is that considered a prank, or is that considered more of a humorous time that you had? The unusual events.
Not a prank. It's a ritual.
More of a ritual, yes. Hang on, we're gonna. All right. So you did mention that you have photographs. Is that correct? You have all kinds of photographs in your room, you say. And can you recall what some of those photographs are of?
Traveling trips on the highway, in the desert, like there's a sign that shows camel crossing, which was unusual.
Right. What did you think of your officers?
They were good.
Yeah, they were pretty good.
Everybody came home.
Awesome. What about fellow soldiers?
We took kids out of the classroom and put them on the battlefield.
Yeah. Do you keep in contact with any of those guys?
Yes, I do.
And about how many of them do you still keep in contact with?
We have a reunion every 3 years.
Oh, fabulous. And where's that reunion? Back up in Boston?
Right.
So you fly up there to go see them?
Right.
Excellent. And did you ever keep a personal diary?
No, I didn't.
No. And do you remember the day that your service ended? I think you finished in 1995 out of the National Guard.
Right.
Can you remember the last day and where you were?
At the Hingham Armory.
And that was by your own accord that you got out?
Right.
All right. And what did you do in the days and weeks after you were out of the military?
And went to work,
Yeah? And what did you do there?
driving a truck.
Okay. And what did you do as your civilian job?
Truck driver.
Truck driver, of course. Did you ever go back to school when you got out of the military? No?
I went to school in the military for cooking.
Right. Cooking and driving. And let's see, so you did not use your GI Bill because you didn't need to.
I used a GI Bill to buy a house.
Ah, fabulous. And so you're close friends in the service. Do you still, when you continue to speak with them, do you write letters back and forth at all, or you just see them that once
Just
a
see
year?
them.
Once a year at the reunion?
Yeah.
And for how long have you been, you said for the last how many years have you been going to that reunion?
Every 3 years.
Since 95?
Right.
Are you a member of any of the veterans organizations?
Yeah, the disabled DAV.
DAV, Disabled American Veterans. Fantastic. All right, so we're getting to the conclusion here. Where did you go, or what did you go on to do after your career, after the military, besides, I mean, you said you were driving trucks. Were they long-haul trucks gone away?
Went from Maine to Baltimore.
Oh, fantastic. So really you were pretty much home every couple of days then?
Yeah.
And so your military experience definitely influenced your way of thinking?
Right.
How about the military in general?
It showed me discipline.
With the DAV, do you have any activities that your post has that you associate with?
They go for lunch. They have a meeting once a month.
Once a month they have a meeting. Uh-huh. So how do you think, in a nutshell, did your service or experience affect your life?
Definitely.
Definitely? And how?
So should have had camaraderie and discipline. That's about it.
So is there anything that you'd like to add, Mr. Azer, that we haven't covered in the interview?
I think we covered it all.
Yeah, we did. All right. Well, I do want to thank you, sir, for all your recollections, all your stories, and maybe sometime we can take a look at some of your pictures.
Okay.
And thank you so much.
Thank you.